So what is Empyreal? In a nutshell, Empyreal is a third-person action RPG about transcendental revelation. The game begins with your arrival on an unexplored planet to join an expedition that's discovered a monolith built by a lost ancient civilization. And so you are immediately presented with these grand questions. Why is it here? Who built it? What was its original purpose? And perhaps even what power might it still contain? And as you progress through the story, you'll explore themes and ideas about humanity's place in the cosmos. Some of these themes have largely fallen out of favour in the modern world, perhaps you could even say postmodern world. Things like duty, sacrifice, a tragic view of life, a sense of civilizational impetus, the idea that humanity is on a journey through history and that there is a meaning and purpose to that. And so as you uncover what this ancient civilization managed to achieve, the question you have to consider is whether this still has relevance to the modern world. Despite all of its technological advancements, has the modern world forgotten some things that are important to humanity's story? To begin your journey towards these discoveries, you will of course first need to make your character. We have a fairly extensive character creation. You can play as male or female, and there's quite a lot of customization options beyond that. When you're happy with how you look, then you select a background. So this is not a hugely important decision, honestly, because the equipment that you get as part of the background you choose is going to be replaced as you play the game, but it does give you a little bit of flavor to begin the game with. Once you finalize your character, you arrive in the hub to meet the rest of the expedition. Each member of the expedition has their own personal questline. All of these questlines have multiple endings, and it's even possible to fail them entirely. These quests each explore a different facet of the human condition, and this is based on the ideals of the individual themselves, the challenges they faced, and what they hope to ultimately achieve. But again, all revolving around this incredible discovery that the expedition has made. The gameplay of Empyreal is a mix of traditional third-person action and I would say isometric ARPG elements as well, in the way that abilities work in the game. The first thing to take note of is which weapon archetype you want to use, as this will have a big effect on your overall playstyle. Each weapon comes with its own core moveset, and they differ quite a lot from each other. You can change this later on, so it's not a class-based system. You pick up loot, and you can change your equipment, and that includes the weapon, which will change your core moveset. But in addition to that, and this is where those isometric ARPG elements come in, you equip abilities to your action bar. But you can only have a limited number of them equipped, so you equip 4 abilities, and in addition to that, an ultimate ability, but there are many, many more in the game. Choosing what abilities you like is a big part of making your build. Other aspects of character progression and making your build is of course finding new equipment, which is the main way to increase your stats or gain new stats. So there is a strong RPG aspect to the gameplay, but there are skill-based elements as well. You can do perfectly timed attacks, deflects, parries, and even some abilities have extra effects if they are perfectly timed. One of the most important and unique features of the game is something that we call cartograms. Cartograms are the levels that you play in the game, and you can almost think of these as a blueprint for some of the aspects that you're encountering in a level. I want to highlight that we don't do procedural level design. We do the level design by hand because we wanted to create all sorts of interesting details, shortcuts, hidden nooks and crannies, and things like that. But what enemies you face, what loot you can find, how many lives you get, what element you'll need a matching resistance to, all of these things and several more are randomly generated. So while the overall level layout is fixed, there'll be many ways in which each level is different depending on the attributes of the cartogram you're using to access it. One of the key things that is decided by the cartogram is the loot table of the boss, which means you can somewhat target the items that you're going for. There's still an element of chance to this. A boss might only drop 2 out of a possible 4 items in a loot table, as an example, but it does give you some ability to direct your playtime towards the goals and rewards that you have in mind. The last thing to note with cartograms is that you can actually share these with other players. So if you found a cartogram that had a really powerful item, you can share it with another player so they have a chance of getting it too. You could give it away or you could trade it. So there's a cooperative aspect which allows players to share the cool levels they find with each other. I think it's important to emphasize that Empyreal is a single-player game. It plays like a single-player game, but we do have a few asynchronous, cooperative multiplayer elements that will allow you to just feel the presence of other players in the world as you play through it. And my personal favorite of these is a feature that we call Into the Ether. When you defeat a boss, you'll get this tear in the ether appear, and this is an opportunity for you to donate, essentially gift an item from your inventory into the ether, and this will cause it to potentially appear in another player's game. And if it goes through this process, it will get a big increase to its stats. But there's no immediate direct reward for you doing this, which means it's really up to the players, in fact the community as a whole, to make it work. And I'm quite curious to see how, or even if, players engage with this feature. At Silent Games, though we are a small team, our ambition is to make feature-rich games that have a great deal of depth to them, both in terms of the mechanics, the combat, the RPG systems, but to the narrative as well, with themes that are thought-provoking and a detailed backstory to give context to the world and the universe. Our hope for this game is, maybe it almost sounds too obvious, but we hope players enjoy it for what it is, a single-player RPG experience with a thought-provoking story, with a lot of RPG mechanics and systems that you can really get stuck into, playing around with these systems to make interesting builds, and with a pretty substantial endgame to try those out in. If people play through the game, they enjoy that experience, they may be a bit surprised about the amount of depth there is to the game and the size of the endgame. We have a fully fleshed out New Game Plus, for example, with some features that are exclusive to New Game Plus even. So play through all of that and then leave happy, then we would consider that to be a big success.